Well, thank you so much for having me today, and welcome to those of you who are here in person for an awesome public swim and presentation. And those of you who are joining via Zoom, I wish I could send some of these chicken tenders your way, but next time. My name is Dillon, and I'm the Executive Director of Princeton in Asia, and I'm really delighted to be here on campus today at Florida State. This is my first time in Tallahassee and my first time on this beautiful campus, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know students here and to spend time with Jesse and Bonnie and their team. So huge thanks to Jesse and Bonnie for the really warm welcome today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Princeton in Asia. And I'll start with a story that's about, why I'm here. I'm gonna move this little chat. So how did I end up here in this room today? So the first reason is that I work for Princeton in Asia. And the reason I work for Princeton in Asia is that after I graduated from college, I did a Princeton in Asia fellowship. And I had thought graduating from school that I wanted to be a German professor. And I was, I studied German and I had this really clearly laid out plan for myself. And I was going to go do this postgraduate fellowship in Germany. And afterwards, I was going to become a German professor. And so I went to Germany after graduation and I spent a lot of time alone in a library. And I realized this is not what my path was going to be. So then I did a teaching fellowship after that, Austria. And while I was there, I went on a trip to Southeast Asia with some of my roommates from college. And it was one of those mind-blowing moments where I realized how little I knew about the world and how little I knew about these countries in Asia that I had visited. So I had the opportunity to go to Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, and it totally blew my mind. And I thought, wow, I really need to learn more about this part of the world. So I applied to Princeton in Asia to do a teaching fellowship in Singapore. And I got into my interview and the director at the time said, "You're not going to Singapore, I'm going to send you to Laos, and your job is going to be working at the Lao Rugby Federation." And I had played rugby in college, and I thought that I was going to show up and do some work as a rugby coach and helping to develop the rugby programs in Laos. And it turned out that my job was actually managing the National Rugby Federation. So I spent 3 years living in Laos, managing the Lao Rugby Federation, and it was the best experience of my life, the hardest work I've ever done, the most immersive cultural experience I could have imagined. And it really changed the way I thought about the world and my role in it and how I wanted to spend my life. So I became, inspired to work for PIA because it had given me this really transformative experience. And I wanted to help recent college graduates have a chance to see the world, to try out different ways of being, different types of jobs and careers, and something that you might not have thought was going to be your path, but it turns out that it actually is your path. So that's the first reason why I'm here and why I've been at PIA for 10 years in this role as executive director. The second reason is in this photograph, you will see an awesome graduate of Florida State, Aria Alden, who is our very first PIA fellow from Florida State. Thank you for coming. It's great to meet you. No worries, you gotta leave. Take the postcard with you. Think about us when you graduate. Come check us out. And this presentation is being recorded, so you can watch it later.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care. And have a great rest of the semester.
Thank you.
So Aria graduated from Florida State. She's our very first FSU fellow on PIA, and she is posted this year in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan in a teaching position. And I had the chance to go and I went with my colleague Matt, who's over here in the corner, Matt Hernandez, and we went and visited Aria in her post and got to see her teach this awesome classroom of students from across Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and there are even some students here from Afghanistan. And Aria is a fabulous fellow who's doing incredible work, and she very kindly introduced me to Bonnie and Jesse. So that's how I ended up coming here today. So for those of you joining here in the room and those of you on the chat, I wanted to ask a little bit about who you are and why you're here. So my first question is, why did you come today? And if you're here in person, there are 3 of us in person, you can answer verbally. And if you're on Zoom, maybe put it in the chat. And if the answer is I'm here for the free lunch, that's okay. So if you could drop in the chat why you're here today or why you're here in person.
Well, I had seen it advertised via email, and then I happened to be in the building and I saw that it was going on.
Great.
But I'm very interested in this program and just learning a little bit more about it because I'm not very educated on what this program is.
Mhm.
But I'm in international affairs and English double major, and I'm also minoring in Chinese So I'm
Great.
definitely interested.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's
Glad we're
wonderful. Glad you're here. Would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I've always wanted to like get more involved in like, and I saw like, I'm like interested in traveling abroad and like getting involved in like a fellowship. And so I saw this and I saw the email as well. And it looks like something that I kind of want to do in the future. So I want to learn.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you so much. And how about you?
Well, I didn't hear anything about this until you two walked in, but then when you talked about like Asia. I was just like, oh, that's interesting, because I've always wanted to study abroad.
Mhm.
Not in the sense of study abroad, but I know for a fact, at least in my major, because I'm in music education, we don't have any flexibility with that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so to know that there were programs after graduation, that was interesting. And then you trapped me in here with the food, not trap. It was like because
The bait and switch, the bait and
yeah,
switch.
you baited and switched it because we were gonna go to like, I would have grabbed food from Chick-fil-A and brought it up here anyways, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's great. We've got a few things in the chat here. So Ashley said, I would love to study in another country and I know very little about Asian culture. Maria wants to learn about the program. Mia says it seemed like a very interesting program and as an international affairs major, it seemed like something I could benefit from. Benjamin said, so the Public and Global Affairs LLC or Pullman posted this as an event and I was interested in it. Honestly, I don't know anything about it, but it sounds cool. Never been to Asia. Awesome. Alexis says, I wanted to learn more about this program and I am very in love with Asian culture. I know basic Japanese and starting to learn Mandarin. Awesome. That these are really great responses. And I think this is fabulous because we do have something for everyone, no matter what your interest is in going to Asia. And I was able to talk with some of the folks before we started about where you're coming from, like if you're from Florida or from outside of Florida. So in the chat, if you just drop in, did you grow up in Florida? Or where you grew up? I just love to get a sense of that. And where did you, are you a
I'm
Florida?
from, yeah, the Tampa area.
Tampa area, okay, all right. Oh, we've got Ohio, Mexico, Miami. Nice, South Florida 305 life.
That's right.
Yep, awesome. Okay, so I'm getting my full introduction to Florida, which is great. I came here from St. Petersburg today, but I live in New Jersey, where Princeton Asia is headquartered. Coral Springs, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So Princeton Asia fosters mutual appreciation and cross-cultural understanding between the United States and Asia. And we do that through immersive work fellowships and host organizations and communities for recent college graduates. And our overarching goal is to contribute to building a world where people share mutual appreciation and respect for the diversity of cultures and perspectives. Our organization was founded in 1898, so this is our 125th year of doing this work. We're run by a team of 6 full-time staff. We're an independent nonprofit that's located on campus at Princeton University, but our PIA fellows come from graduates from all over the United States and beyond. And we currently operate programs, or this summer we'll be operating programs in 11 countries and regions in Asia. And we have 3 core programs that I will talk about. We're going to focus today on the fellowships, which are 1-year renewable or 2-year fellowships for recent college graduates. We also have smaller programs for Princeton undergrads and summer internships, and for alumni of our program for an independent project. So if you go on to do a PIA fellowship, you could be eligible for an alumni grant. And this is a picture in Kazakhstan of someone getting out in the snow. So it feels very different from the weather in Florida today. So our fellowships are 1 to 2 year long paid work placements. Thank you for coming. Take care. And we run fellowships in a variety of issue areas. And I will tell you some examples of what these fellowships are and where you could be working. We anticipate operating the fellowships in 2024, 2025, which is we'll be opening an application in the summer for this in Cambodia, Indonesia, Japan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Mongolia, Mongolia twice because we've got so many positions in Mongolia, Singapore, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. And just a show of hands or in the chat, has anyone here ever been to Asia or to one of these places? You've been to Asia before, okay? Has anyone in the chat been to Asia? Nope. Who wants to go to Asia? Potentially, or a place in Asia. All right, half hand, maybe. Okay, excellent. Well, these are really interesting, rich cultures, and they're all very different. And that's one of the things that's so exciting about getting to know Asia better is that it's a massive continent. There's so many different places, geographies, cultures, religious backgrounds, and you'll have the chance to immerse yourself culturally in one of these places. So I'll tell you a little bit about the specific fellowship opportunities so you can start to paint a picture for yourself of what you might be doing. So we have positions in arts and culture, and I know that Florida State has really excellent arts and culture programming. So we have a position at a sake brewery in Japan, if you're interested in learning about culinary arts and brewing. We have a position at a cultural heritage preservation organization in Thailand, and also a position in the student development office at a polytechnic in Singapore, focused on performance and visual arts. If folks are interested in economic development or business positions, we have a range of posts from investment banking in Mongolia to business development consulting in Japan and Vietnam, to working for a social enterprise that is working on transitioning from a nonprofit to a business. And so you would be working on developing community-based tourism projects or exporting dares to international markets or helping to develop merchandise lines with Mongolian artists. So a variety of opportunities there. We have a lot of education posts. Some of these are teaching English anywhere from primary school level up to university level, but we also have STEM teaching positions and other subject matters in teaching positions, as well as administrative posts such as working in the office of the president at a university in Kazakhstan, or working on faculty development and collaboration at a life sciences university in Mongolia. We're helping faculty to connect to opportunities abroad. In terms of environmental sustainability, we have posts at a major NGO working on water issues, as well as positions working on environmental sustainability across Asia through a think tank. Peace, justice, and access to information is an area where we have journalism positions. So we have a daily English language newspaper in Korea, social justice focused posts in NGOs, such as working on disability access and rights in Laos, in public health, working on infectious disease, sexual and reproductive health in Laos and Cambodia, working on road safety issues in Vietnam. Sports, if you're interested, we have a position at a rock climbing company in Thailand. And in STEM, we have positions working at a coding position at a fintech startup in Mongolia, teaching STEM, or teaching cybersecurity and digital forensics at a polytech in Singapore. So these are it's sort of like Mad Libs. We have a really wide variety of opportunities across a number of issue areas. And hopefully we offer something for everyone. And we're always trying to find new ways for participants to connect to Asia and immerse themselves in Asia. So you might be wondering what PIA fellows receive as part of this fellowship. So the main thing is you get an immersive work opportunity that's 1 or 2 years long, and it's paid, and you're partnered with a host organization in Asia that is going to be employing you and going to be looking after you on the day-to-day. You receive pre-departure support from PIA. So we have a pre-departure orientation program that takes place virtually. That's where you connect with your cohort, and then you'll be connecting with your cohort throughout the year through virtual settings. And some folks even get around to visit each other in person. If you're in an English teaching position, we offer a teaching English as a foreign language training, and we cover costs related to your visa. So if you're going to Kazakhstan, you might have to fly to a consulate in Chicago, for instance. So PIA would pay for you to fly to Chicago to work on your visa and work permit. And the visa costs in country are covered by the host organization. You become part of the PIA network, so you get administrative support from our team in Princeton. You are connected to the members of your cohort. You are connected to country advisors, and these are locals and expats from the country you were placed in who will help you navigate cultural experiences, help you get immersed, and then an alumni network. And we have 3,400 alumni who are all across the world. They come from over, I think, 150 to 200 universities. So it's a really wide network in a number of different professional areas. You receive health, safety, and welfare resources. So you get travel medical insurance that covers pretty much anything under the sun that could come up. You receive 24/7 emergency assistance support from International SOS, which is a best-in-class provider of this, and also robust mental health support. And then in terms of getting to your post, select posts, airfare is covered by the host organization, and we do offer travel grants by application. So if the cost of a flight is something you're concerned about, do not worry, PA will be able to help you with that. And we also offer language grants by application, because in many of the countries we're going to, unless you're a heritage speaker, you might not have the opportunity to learn Mongolian where you are. And very few universities teach Lao language, but we want you to get there, get immersed. So these are some of the benefits you receive as a PIA fellow. I'll talk a little bit about the timeline so you can start thinking about how this works. And just those of you who are joining via Zoom, please feel free to drop questions into the chat as we're going through this. So our application opens in August, and that process runs through August through November. And then we go away, we read your applications, and we then move on to the interview stage. If you move on to that part of the process, we do that for between January and February. And then we put together a nomination. So we go through all the candidates we've interviewed and we select nominees for each position we have. And then we turn it over to the host organizations, and the host organizations will conduct an interview with you as well. So you have a chance to interview both the PIA and the host organization. And the host organization makes the final selection for PIA fellowship. And between mid-March and late March, we extend our award offers. And then we move into the pre-departure phase, which is looking at getting your visa, going through orientation, preparing for all this. In terms of what we're looking for in our fellows, PIA is working to find the strongest match between fellows, our host organization, and PIA. So we really look for people who are committed to and embodying PIA's mission and values. So that's someone who's focused on building bridges between the US and Asia. And I'll talk about our values in a little bit. We're looking at your ability to function effectively and independently in a foreign living and working environment. And we look at your skills, qualifications, and backgrounds for job positions. So I talked about some of the fellowships earlier. It's a very diverse set of fellowships. So they have really specific, skills that they're looking for. So we try to find a good match between those. And that means that we may see a fit for you that you may not have envisioned before, in the same way that I didn't think I was going to go work at a rugby federation because I wanted to be in a teaching post. We might have different ideas for you. So that's an iterative process and something we work on in collaboration with our applicants. And just noting that fellows are employees of host organizations and not of PIA, and our host orgs make the final selections. So let's talk a little bit about the application and eligibility, because we want you to know that PIA is something that, hopefully you can do. So there's no language requirement for most of our posts. Some of our posts with very specialized opportunities and in places where you may have had the chance to study the language before at most US universities. So these are places where maybe you've had the chance to learn Japanese or Chinese or Russian. These are some of the, or some universities have Korean as well. We might have a language requirement for those, but for most posts, no language requirements. There are no citizenship requirements. How we say, people can contribute to the mission of US-Asia exchange in a wide variety of ways. And so we don't want to be very prescriptive about what that looks like, but we will ask you in the application, how will you contribute to this mission of US-Asia exchange? And we want you to know that there is no cost to apply. I'll talk a little bit about PIA's values. So we're looking for people who are interested in having a transformative experience, who are focused on a culturally immersive experience. We want people who will build relationships in the community. We want people who are humble. Yes, you're applying for a fellowship and this is an award, and sure there's prestige attached to it, but when you're going into a new community and you want to build relationships, you need to be a listener, a learner, someone who asks questions, not someone who goes in and tells people what to do. That is a way to not make any friends or build relationships. So we're looking for people who are culturally humble. We're looking for people who are focused on mutuality and interdependence, and know that this is really a two-way exchange. And how you rely on other people, and you're aware of how you have responsibilities towards other people. And we look for folks who will contribute to the community in a positive way. So we don't like to talk about service at PIA because that has a very top-down implication to it. We're really focused on a bottom-up contribution or from the side contribution. So why PIA? I'll just talk about a few reasons. Some of our alums have said they really appreciate the PIA experience. So this is a chance to immerse in and learn from a new culture. And our alumni reported that they built their soft skills through doing PIA. So they increased their empathy, their open-mindedness, their humility, their flexibility, and their resilience. And pre-COVID, maybe these things weren't so, flashy, but I think there's been a lot of talk about, and I think you all who are in college now have shown just how flexible you need to be in life. And I think we're really learning from you now in terms of flexibility and resilience in terms of how you navigated your high school and college careers. But the PIA experience will further flex and develop those muscles for you. Developing a nuanced understanding of your host country and a new perspective on your home country. So 83% of our fellows discovered they had misconceptions they held about their PIA host country. So this is an educational experience, gives you a change in perspective. You get to contribute to global issues at the local level through a job that matters. You can have a chance to really participate in meaningful work locally, nationally, and regionally, and also have the chance to pilot your own projects outside of work. And you become part of a community for life. So you're building lifelong bridges to your host community in Asia and the host organization in Asia and the PIA community across the world. You have the opportunity to learn language and culture of your PIA host community. So you can see here that foreign language is a very important part of this. And 92% of our PIA alums speak at least one foreign language and 50% speak at least two. And 2 out of 3 PIA alums have returned to their host community at least once after their fellowship. So this is really a lifelong connection. In terms of what PIA alums go on to do, there is a wide variety of fields that people go on to. So I think foreign service, international affairs, international relations, international development, this is a major area that our alums go on to work in. So thinking about, I was on a call last night for some PIA related work with a foreign service officer who's getting ready for her posting in Sudan, another foreign service officer who works for USAID and is based in Guatemala. So we have folks who go on to pursue those careers. Also people who go on to work in law and government. One of our most prominent alums went to Taiwan as a PIA fellow, and that launched his career in Greater China. And he went on to become the general counsel of Alibaba. And so that was his first opportunity in Asia, and he went on to have a lifelong career there. Folks work for nonprofit organizations and NGOs. They work in academia, teaching and research. So we have a number of PIA professors and teachers. People go on to lead business careers, working in media. Another one of our board members is a Pulitzer Prize winner, reporter at the New York Times, who focuses on climate change. He was previously covering tech in China. Lots of PIA doctors and people doing public health work, engineers, people working in environmental science, people in arts and culture, poets, musicians, fine artists and actors. So pretty much anything under the sun. And some people go on to do sports management as well. So you can do anything after this. This is a little bit more about the fellowship timeline. And I'm going to turn away from that because we already had a chance to talk about the timeline really briefly. But we just invite you to share any questions you have with piaapps@princeton.edu. That's our email address, so you can send any inquiries there. And you can visit our website, piaweb.princeton.edu. And we will be updating our website soon. So we will have a fresh new look coming at you this summer. But yeah, I'm going to stop there and ask for your questions. This can just be informal conversation. And those of you who are joining via Zoom, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat. I'll leave this slide up with our contacts for a few minutes, and then I'll transition over to the Zoom interface if I can, so I can see faces and or interact there. Okay, thank you.
So this opportunity would be something that you apply for like your senior year of college, and you do directly post grad, like in your first 1 to 2 years out of undergraduate school?
Great question. Yes, you can do it right after you graduate. You can also do it a few years after you graduate. So we are pretty loose in our definition of recent graduate. Like me, you could wait 3 or 4 years and then do PIA, or you could graduate right out of college and go on to. But you have to have graduated with your BA, and that's for visa reasons. So visa restrictions across these countries require a bachelor's degree. Yes.
So then would you apply your senior year, like going into the fall of your senior year?
Yes, exactly. And that placement process would take place throughout your senior year. And then the fellowship would start, most of the fellowships start in August. Some of them start in July and some start in September, but you have that summer to graduate, celebrate, and prepare yourself to go abroad. And then we try to time it so that if you stay for a full year or for 2 years, you might be going on to graduate school afterwards, or you might have another job that is starting. And so you would be able to do that in that following academic year. But that's something to be aware of if you're thinking about going to med school or law school after graduation, just making sure this timeline's fine. Yeah, great questions.
So when you're reviewing applicants,
Mhm.
what are some of the like skills or experiences that really like stand out in an application? You like, so what are some things for maybe students who are in their first year, second year,
Mhm.
maybe still have at least another year to apply? What are some things they could get involved in or start doing now to really help themselves stand out?
Just taking down this question, it's a great question. So I think that things that stand out are, we look for folks who are interested in engaging across difference. Because the PIA experience is really about learning how to work together with people who are different than you are in whatever way across all of these lines of difference. So what are ways that you've engaged with your community and communities that are different than you've had? And that can look really different for different people. I think we look for if you have shown an interest in a particular place. It doesn't have to be Asia, it could be, I'm really interested in learning about Brazil and I've dedicated myself to really immersing in this culture. And now I want to do the same thing in another place. That's something that stands out to us. And so if you are interested in language learning, that's something that stands out to us as well. I think as many opportunities as you can, and I know that there are a variety of reasons why it's not possible for folks, but if you can get abroad during your college experience and have that opportunity to go someplace new, and maybe there are, internships in a different part of the US that would be really different for you. I would say try that because we want to see that you can function independently and effectively in a new environment. So that takes resilience, that takes independence, that takes resourcefulness, that takes a bit of strength and ability to sort of navigate yourself in a new place. I think those are some of the things we look for. It's a great question.
Emphasizing those soft skills, like you mentioned.
Soft skills,
earlier.
yes,
Yeah.
emphasizing soft skills. And, one thing I would say is that, yes, your academic background is important, because that shows, okay, here's what you've really worked hard studying. But the GPA is not something that we're focused on because your GPA doesn't determine how effective you're going to be necessarily in building relationships with people. And this is all about building relationships with people. So, great if you're really psyched about your GPA, but please don't let that be a deterrent if you're, not as psyched about your GPA. Good questions. Anyone in the chat, do you have questions? Nope.
That just means you were extremely thorough in your
Yeah,
presentation.
extremely thorough in the presentation. Okay, then I have a question. Oh, yes, okay, way to go. All right, let's hear it.
So after you completed the Princeton Asia program, did you immediately start working for Princeton Asia?
Yes, I did. It was a pretty unique circumstance. So I went to Laos and I was going to stay in Laos, and one of probably the most rewarding work I did when I was living there, we started rugby programs in northeastern Laos, in communities where girls and women and young women hadn't had the chance to play sports before. And that was a really meaningful area of work for me. And so I was going to continue that work with an NGO that we were partnering with. But this opportunity at PIA arose, and I was very excited to have the chance to come and contribute to PIA. So I ended up moving back to the US, and I live in Princeton now. And through this job, I'm really lucky that, I would have maintained my connections in Laos anyways, but I get to go back there for work too, which is nice. So I'm still very close with my colleagues from the Rugby Federation and my teammates from that time. So.
Yeah, and then just one other question.
Mhm.
So you mentioned a lot of the different opportunities that you had in all these different countries. So are those things advertised prior to like application season, like which opportunities would be available?
Yeah, this is a great question. So we work as hard as we can to finalize the opportunities before we open up the application. So you have a chance to see in like great specificity, what's on the table, what skills do I need for which positions? And if I'm correct, you can see the list from the previous year on through our website, through the application guide. But we will be updating that over the summer to reflect new opportunities that are coming online. And then over the course of the fall and winter, we often add new positions. So for instance, we expect next summer, we'll be sending folks out to Cambodia and Indonesia, but we're working on developing those programs right now. So you may not have full information about those opportunities, but the post that we know we're going to have, you will have a chance to look at. So that you'll have pretty detailed information at that stage.
Thank you.
Great question. Yes,
Is there a minimum like age requirement? Because I'm thinking about graduating next year. Like, I don't know if like that, like, could conflict with anything, like traveling.
that's a really good question. And honestly, I don't think I've gotten that question. Usually it's the, I'm graduating, what's on the upper end. I think I would need to, I think 18 is probably the minimum age, so as long as you're not a minor, but I will need to follow up with you on that. So maybe after this presentation, we can talk a little bit more about your case, but I'm so glad you're thinking about that. That's awesome that you might be graduating already. Fantastic. Anyone in the chat, other questions?
So if you had to, kind of ballpark, and I know you're working on finalizing a few programs, but like the number of like postings that you would have on
Yeah.
a given year?
Great question. So right now we have 21 fellows in Asia right now. In this summer, we will be sending out between 40 and 48 fellows.
Okay.
And we anticipate the following summer it will be closer to 50 or 60.
Okay.
So we are in our post-COVID phase,
Reemergence.
rebuild
Yeah.
and reemergence. Yeah. Yeah. And we anticipate adding more countries as we continue to go along. So what year are you?
Oh, I'm a freshman.
You're a freshman. Okay, so by the time, by the time you're graduating, we will have more things online. And Tricia and Maria, what year are you all? If you could drop it in the chat. Junior
Excellent.
and freshman. Awesome. Okay, so this is fantastic. It's amazing that you're thinking ahead. And yes, we will, and Maria, you can apply next year, which is fantastic. But yeah, for those of you who are first years, we'll have many more countries online by the time you graduate.
And the plug for our office is we have opportunities
Now,
for freshmen, sophomores, juniors, until you get to Princeton and Asia eligibility.
yes. So when you asked the question earlier about what do you look for, we look for people who work with Jesse and Bonnie, do all these things. They have amazing programs that you can take advantage of while you're
And
here.
more.
And yes,
It's living back,
and
but
more.
yes, and
Yeah.
scholars too.
Yes. So, I think one of the things is that there are so many opportunities around, and it's just a matter of connecting the dots and finding where they are. But keep an open mind and try out these new things as you have a chance to. For sure. Yes,
I guess this is a question, and I'm sorry that I came in and missed
no worries.
probably this answer. As far as kind of like when you're going into your senior year,
Mhm.
at what point should you kind of commit it or go see Jesse or Bonnie at that point, like from a student standpoint?
At least because we usually start recruiting for many of these postgraduate fellowships. And when I say recruiting spring of your junior year, and that is to like sit down and have a conversation and plan. And the reason for that is because so much of this work happens over the summer. And students going into their senior year rarely work on applications like this in a vacuum. Usually we're considering, like I'm applying to graduate school, I'm applying to a Princeton and Asia fellowship, maybe I'm applying to the Fulbright, maybe I'm applying to, and that's to really give yourself options for spring of your senior year when decisions come out. So usually that timeline is summer headed into your final year is all about applying. Fall is about clicking that submit button, and then late fall into early spring is just waiting. And so many of the graduates like programs that students are applying for are more than happy to defer your enrollment by a year for like a Princeton in Asia opportunity or something else. And so yes, long-winded answer, but it's never too early to start having a conversation about what your goals are. And setting that timeline is really important. Sorry, I didn't mean to take.
No, I'm really glad. That answer is really helpful, and I just think one of the things that we hope every applicant will get out of the process is a chance to reflect and really think about what you're interested in or what you might be interested in. And we look for folks who are curious about the world and hope that through the application process you'll have learned something. And so PIA may end up being the right thing for you and it might not, and that's okay. But our goal is that we help you get where you want to go through the process. So any other questions? Maria, any final questions? Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stick around. We've got this room for the next 45 minutes. And I really appreciate you being here and
Plenty
look
of
forward to learning more about you and talking about how you might participate in PIA. And please tell your friends and have a great day. Maria, I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person soon or at some point in the future and hope you'll decide to apply. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.